He rented out a whole wing of the hotel and met up there.
During the 90s, Kim Jong-il's private life was a state secret. Nobody knew about his 3 mistresses and 4 children. And when his health started to deteriorate, North Korea's neighbors were worried about who would succeed him and what might happen if Kim Jong-il were to disappear suddenly. But within the Kim family's secretive bosom, the decision had long since been made. The eldest son, Kim Jong-nam, would have seemed to be the natural successor in the Confucian tradition, just as Kim Jong-il had inherited power from his father. But Kim Jong-nam had committed several gaffes, among them an embarrassing arrest in Tokyo with a fake passport. He had wanted to visit Disneyland with his family. The second son, Kim Jong-chol, educated in Switzerland, was considered too soft, even too feminine by his father. Kim Jong-un may well have been the youngest son, but he was also the son of Kim Jong-il's greatest love, Ko Young-hee. The former dancer would play a significant role in the corridors of power.
Ko Young-hee played an important part in ensuring that her son took over the reins of power. Kim Jong-nam, the eldest son, already had an important role in the country's hierarchy, with an elevated position at the General Bureau of Data Processing, where he specialized in communication networks. But since Kim Jong-un took control, Kim Jong-nam has found himself in an awkward position. He can no longer return to North Korea.
The 17th of December 2011, North Korea was in mourning. Kim Jong-il, the shining sun of the 21st century, had died just a few days before. It was time for the propaganda machine to set up the funeral scene. The funeral would also be the confirmation of the youngest son's accession, which had been confirmed to North Korea and the rest of the world a year earlier.
Kim Jong-il was ruling the country, or basically had senior position in the country for quite some time before he became the leader, at least 10 years that he was involved. And Kim Jong-un, I think, it all came very suddenly. They did it, the propaganda, they did a bit of going back and sort of trying to create a story about how he was being trained many years in advance. But that wasn't the case at all. I mean, the fact of the matter was that his father had the first stroke, and that's when they started becoming concerned about succession. And then he died quite suddenly. And I think the young fellow was not ready. There was a plan, I think, to have him become the next leader, but I imagine they were thinking 5-10 years, not 1 year. And so, I think it was very clear from the funeral and everything, the way he looked and the way he was behaving, that he was in shock and not really ready to take over.
Kim Jong-un's problems had already begun. Did the aging generals gathered around his father's coffin see such a young leader in a favorable light? Kim Il-sung, the founder of the nation, staked his claim by leading the anti-Japanese guerrilla army during the Second World War. Kim Jong-il was the regime's second in command for 15 years or so, and then assumed power after 50 years. Kim Jong-un, however, was a mere 26 years old with no experience and no reputation to precede him. So in order to keep his grip on the reins of power, he embarked on a monstrous purge. The regime needed to be represented by a whole new generation.
북한의 worst period를 겪고
Today, Kim Jong-un needs to connect with people who remember the great famine from their childhood.
나라를 이끌어가야 되는 그런 지금 처지에 있죠.
I believe it will be harder to maintain solidarity between the elite and the leader than it was for the two previous regimes.
응집력이라고 할까요? 유대 관계가.
Things could be rather fraught, and so the power structure will be built on a foundation of differing interests and terror.
그다음에 공포에 의한
I think that there probably is a lot of internal churn there, because what seemed to be clear is that after Kim Jong-un did take power, he was trying to move some of the business concessions and the political power in the military that his father put there, right? His father believed in so-called military first politics, and move it over to the party, or at least balance out the party and the military. All of the generals that were with Kim Jong-un by the hearse of his father in the funeral procession are all gone. None of them are left. And so very clearly he's wiped out a group and is trying to bring in a new group.
The most prominent victim of the purge was just behind him during the funeral. His uncle, Jang Song-taek, married to Kim Jong-il's sister. Since the 70s, this member by marriage of the family had been at the very heart of power. His brothers were powerful generals. He himself had held a number of key posts in the armed forces and the economy. When Kim Jong-il's health first started to become a cause for concern, his name was mentioned as a potential successor, or at least as a regent to the dictator's young son. 2 years after coming to power, Kim Jong-un decided that his apprenticeship was over and had his uncle executed, along with most of his closest relatives.
굉장히 유능하고
For us, Jang Sang-tak was a very competent man.
자기
I worked with him.
부하들 잘 챙기고
He was funny and kind to his subordinates.
업무
He took good care of us and worked hard.
Certainly the news of his arrest and then his execution were quite surprising to many of us who study this country. But I think what was the most surprising was the written statement that came out explaining why he had been killed. In the past in North Korea, when these sorts of things happen, they happen very quietly. It's a car accident or it's a sickness, and there's really not much explanation given. But in this case, a very clear explanation, in many ways exposing vulnerabilities inside of North Korea.
The charge sheet accused Jang Sang-taek of wanting to overthrow the regime. This was a tacit admission of a struggle at the heart of the power structure. He was also accused of being an unfaithful husband and a corrupt communist. And rumors of his fondness for young girls were confirmed by the official press.
이것이 상징하는 것은
Jang Sang-taek's public execution was very damaging for the regime. North Korea is a deeply Confucianist country where respect for one's elders, especially relatives, is ingrained. Murdering his own uncle was more likely to harm the people's loyalty to Kim Jong-un than consolidate his power. I think that the members of the elite who lose respect for their leader could also turn away from him.
In order for his accession to power to succeed, Kim Jong-un decided to use terror to subdue the regime's old guard. He then concentrated all the key posts and surrounded himself with those loyal to him.
I think that Kim Jong-un is in charge. I don't think that there are puppets behind him because I think the system is designed to only have one person in charge. And so, and everybody must demonstrate their personal loyalty to him in order to survive.
There is one other woman to whom the regime is giving an increasingly significant profile. She was seen behind Kim Jong-un during his father's funeral, although the propagandists never named this young woman in mourning. She's the dictator's younger sister, Kim Yo-jong.
When she was playing, and her trousers or her nappies would start to fall down, it was always Kim Jong-un who noticed. Watch out, he would say, and he would pull them up. He was so fond of her, and he's still fond of her today. Kim Jong-il was equally fond of his little sister. So he's doing exactly what his father did, just the same.
What's interesting is the strong women he surrounds himself with. There was a picture of him when he opened one of the fun parks. He's walking, not only got his wife, he had his aunt, Kim Jong-il's sister. He had his father's last consort, who was apparently a very strong woman. I can't remember if there was one or two more. So it's not completely a patriarchal system there, it seems to me. I guess he's listening to women as well.
Kim Jong-un is grooming his sister for succession in case any crisis like a health issue should befall the regime.